Kia ora, everyone. We've followed through, which is wicked. Got Duncan Humm on board from New Zealand Farming. He's a man after my own heart, actually. He's sitting with the door open in a deer shed with potentially roaring stags in the background, drinking a Spates as well. Oh, it's all on. Duncan, what did you do on the weekend, mate?
What did I do? Well, on Saturday, I was going to have an early start in the deer shed here, just drenching and vaccinating some my velvet fawns. So they were needing 2 drenches and 2 vaccines away up, and then I was also having a bit of a tag audit with the entire velvet breeding mob as well. So that was going to be Saturday morning's job, but it was a bit drizzly again, so I actually just played with the girls at home, had a bit of dad time, which was cool. And then after lunch, got onto the deer and then ripped through that. It took me all afternoon. And then after that, I ditched the deer because the girls were going out to the ballet on Saturday night. So I was like, stuff it, I'll chuck my paddleboard on the ute, and I shot up to the lakes up here for a paddle, Lake Huron. So that was sort of my night, really. And then Sunday was just a few farm jobs, catching up and odd jobs and that sort of thing. So on the whole, I'd say it was a pretty good weekend.
Nice. I always, that's what I said to Kane, it's pretty stupid asking a farmer what you did last weekend, but how important is getting off the farm and doing something like, in your case, going for a hoon on the motorbike or going for a paddleboard. Bloody awesome.
Yeah, it's been really important like these last few months, because it's been so flipping dry here that it's pretty damn depressing just going out around the farm, because all you're doing is feeding out silage, and we've had to been feeding out. I think I've bought 2 unit loads of silage in so far, and that's quite demoralising. Every time you go out to feed out, there's like another few $100 spat out in the paddock, and it's gobbled up just like that. So doing stuff, I've been probably getting a bit behind on the maintenance jobs around the place, just because that's better just to, it'll all still be there. We'll just get through and catch up with that stuff later. But yeah, try to have a bit of get off the place and have plenty of family time, and just to try and keep on an even keel, really.
Yeah, mate, as someone that's investing in your capital stock, and I don't know how excited you got in December and January, but what does a drought do to your thinking?
Well, yeah, we've been playing a bit of at the start of the season, we're playing a bit of a dangerous game, because we're trying to build up our stock numbers. So we're trying to build up our stags, as well as sort of build up our numbers, because we're sort of hoping to take on a bit more land really soon.
Wicked.
And so we're sort of needing to make sure we've got a heap of stock on hand, so when we do move out and expand, we've got the numbers to do that. And I said to Lorna at the start of the year, I was like, we're playing a dangerous game, because if it goes dry, we're going to be in a spot of bother, and sod's law, that's where we've ended up. So, but we're just battle on through and try to make some good decisions and minimise the damage, really.
Yeah, mate. And you mentioned Lorna's name there, and I've had the privilege of meeting your lovely wife. What's it like having a at-home animal health expert to guide you through looking after such valuable animals?
Well, if anyone out there is considering it, if you think it's going to be cheaper, again. No, I mean, it's been fantastic. Like, obviously, we've been together right through when she wasn't even a vet. I think we went on our first date, I think, the day she found out she got into vet school. So, it's been a bit of an adventure together. And then now she is, a very experienced vet and consultant. It's really cool to have that sounding board, and if I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, to get pulled into line with the latest data and latest, the latest tools, and yeah, we're hopefully making some good decisions on the whole.
Awesome. Mate, not many people in this country know much about the deer industry, and I absolutely love it, and I'm stoked that the resources are available for anyone who's interested. But what do you think is hugely important and beneficial, and what do you get out of the likes of advanced parties and next generation deer farming and the conferences?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, just with my line, all my pies that have got fingers in, I really struggle to get to conferences. But luckily, the deer industry generally are really good. Like their annual conference, the deer industry conference, is always live streamed. So usually, also the downside to being a deer vet's husband is she has to go to the conferences for work, and I have to miss out and stay home. So it's not often we get to go to those sort of things together. Mm-hmm. And our advanced party quite often joke. They go, "Are you guys actually married? Because you always seem to turn up separately and disappear separately." And half the time we quite often get into the heated debates, as we do, well, robust discussions. And yeah, the rest of the advanced party cons sometimes are left ducking for cover a wee bit, which is quite funny, but it's pretty cool.
Awesome, mate. So I don't really know why I love deer so much. I think it's being exposed to an absolute legend in northern Southland, Peter Allen, or maybe just growing up in Southland. Those majestic animals are everywhere. Yeah. And I get really disappointed when I see a high fence with cows or sheep in behind it, mate. What for you tickles your fancy about these sometimes fragile but amazing animals?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think probably the biggest thing I always tell guys and like the next gen program and stuff like that, talking to young shepherds and stuff that are getting into it, I try to sort of not sugarcoat it for them, because it can be bloody hard work. But for me, even though it is hard work, sometimes it's that challenge. Like it's a real really sorts out, I'm not going to say men for the boys, but it really sorts out the people with a natural stock ability. And if you show a bit of fear around them, or you're not confident, or you just lack some really good stock sense, they will punish you for it. Which is now, and it's it sounds a bit rough to say that, but that's sort of the double-edged sword. It's pretty exciting sometimes how they test you out. So it's a real good challenge. I think not everybody's cut out for it, but at the same time you have your easy days as well, that everything goes like clockwork and they'll do what they're supposed to do, and that's pretty cool. But when you're really tested, they can be a real challenge, and that's the challenge that makes it awesome fun. So that's, I'd love to say it was the money, but not always the money.
Yeah. No, I've been super lucky. Like I did when Telford was doing it, the level 3 certificate, and that was pretty much through every module you did was talking about husbandry and guiding them and being calm and in control, and then had the privilege of scoring some 4-year-olds with Todd Crowley in the Waikato, and doing a little bit of stuff with Bill Robinson when he was at Raroa Stud, and now in the Hawke's Bay visiting Grant Charteris. And the first time when you get in the deer shed, and even with a guy that was at Landcorp down south and helping him draft some yearling animals one time, it's just that, it's a combination of fear and excitement, and anything could happen. And that's without, scoring the 4-year-olds was big boys, but Todd was sure to get them in the crush before we got our hands on it to give them a hand. What do you sort of think about the industry and its sort of 3 or 4 parts, Velvet Trophy and of course that delicious venison?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, as an industry, I think it's pretty good that there's lots of room. People, especially like the older guys too, are really into trying to bring in young people and get them going on it. That's that's pretty cool. Like no one's really sticking their head in the sand over it, and it's a big issue going forward. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool industry. Like you think a very small industry like the deer industry, you'd be pretty exposed risk-wise, but there's actually quite a few within deer farming. There's, like you say, there's so many different avenues you can be down, whether, just in velvet, obviously you got your trophy and your more your velvet side, and then the venison side. Then you can be, breeding, finishing, stud stock. So, we're pretty complicated here with our system that we're sort of running at the moment. So we've sort of got a foot in each camp, except for trophy. But so it's definitely within a very small industry. There's many different profit streams and income streams, and so it can keep it pretty interesting, pretty fresh.
Yeah, and so I for the first time went to a velvet sale this year. The Wilkins guys have a stud sale up here, and it'd be easy to get carried away when you see that BV on their list that has a pretty good velvet genetics, but there's this massive bodied eastern. How do you keep yourself in a lane? As you said, you're doing a little bit of complicated things and crossing over a little bit, but how do you get not carried away?
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy to get sucked into thinking you've got to spend a heap of money to go anywhere. But again, coming back to that stock sense and being able to sort of pick out animals, you don't necessarily, obviously spending lots of money can increase your chances, increase your odds, but at the same time, there's been a lot of good stags over the years picked out from what other people would consider trash, and especially in the velvet, that's just about more art than science. And you get talking to those real good guys about how stags that they've picked out over the years, especially when they know their animals so well. Like we have quite a bit to do with a guy just down the road from us here, Craig Coburn, who's got a pure Humm stud, and he knows every animal inside, outside, back to front. And a lot of his progeny are here in our velvet genetics. And when he'll come and have he's always keen to come and look at how the next crop of stags are coming on, and we'll go out and sit in the paddock with the binoculars, and he'll go, right, who was that one's mother? So you tell it, and as best you can. And he goes, oh yeah, no, I remember her father when he was a yearling. And it's pretty amazing the knowledge that's inside people's heads. And then when you make that up with some science and some numbers as well, that's where we're seeing. That's probably one of the most exciting things about the deer industry compared to sheep and beef and dairy, is there's just so much untapped gains. We're just, that pendulum's just really going, and the inertia is really cranking up. And if you get it right, there's some big gains to be had. And it's pretty intoxicating and pretty exciting to see all these animals coming through. And like you say, it'd be pretty cool to go to these sales with these pretty big checkbooks the big guys have, and buy something really nice out of the catalogue. But you got to do the best you can with what you've got. So
And someone in your neighbourhood, Graham Carr with Peel Forest Estate, what do you think it's doing for the industry, having someone that's willing to front up with the checks and push the science and get all the data out there? What do you think that does for raising the standard, and as you say, meaning that as I guess you're a consumer of studs, if you put it that way, what does it do for you and your confidence, I guess?
Well, going forward, it's always cool to watch them with what they're up to down there, and a lot of those stud guys, like the rate of gain they're getting with everything they're doing. Obviously, Peel Forest are doing a lot of the embryo transfers and a lot of semen, and like the rate of progression is just so fast. And if you're buying half-wide decent stags at their sales, everyone's benefiting from that. And those guys need to be well rewarded, because they're putting in some pretty big, like you think about how much they make out of a sale, but like what they've invested over the years in genetics and trial and error, and to get to where they are now, it's been a massive investment in time and energy and money. And luckily we're all benefiting from that now. And we can even think, just like here on our farm, where we started from and where we're at now, and hopefully where we're heading. That's pretty exciting. The gains that can be had, so even on our tiny budget. So
nice. As you said, Craig was it that has the Warnham stud?
Yeah, Craig Coburn.
Yeah. I've always wondered, sort of after the sale, when you take your stag home, or you take your capital stock hinds home, what is the interaction like, and how much do they want to know the performance, and what data do they want back, or is it basically you're running your own farm now?
Yeah, well, no, they're always pretty, as long as things are going well, they're pretty keen to come and have a look and see how you're doing. And I think, after we bought the last couple of stags out of Peel Forest, back when Steve was there, they'd always try to come around in the winter and see it, and sit around the table and sort of know, or even go out around the paddock and see how they're looking. And they always like to know that the stags have done well. And the first thing, whenever you bump into them, they're like, "Oh, how did your scanning go?" And, how that stag settle in, and that sort of thing. So it's they keep a pretty good finger on the pulse as to what stock that they've turned out the gate, how well they go. So and obviously they need that feedback going back into the breeding program to know that what they're churning out is actually shaping up to be half decent. So.
And while we're on the topic of Peel Forest, and of course Palmer as well, how would you be a deer milker?
Well, no. You have to. I mean, I've been up. We're lucky here; it's not the Land Corp guys, but the deer milkers, which is Graham Carr and co just up the road here at Lincoln Hills, that are milking deer as well. And I've been up to see their operation, and it's just, it's just that classic pioneering, trailblazing attitude that's rife through the deer industry. And those guys that really set it up, and it's just the next progression from 30 years ago. Those guys were jumping out of helicopters catching wild deer, and now they're investing big time and money into trying to milk them and get the next big thing, the next big industry going. So I watch with interest, and I'd love to be able to milk them. I say to a lot of people, I bag my hinds once a year, get wet dries out at tagging time, and bagging them once a year is one time too many. So I really, just so much respect for what they're trying to do, because it's not for the faint-hearted at all. So
and especially if you've got a drought-like conditions, that one that hasn't performed for a year, that might carrying on and give you sort of, or how old have some of your hinds been? 16, 17, 18, 19?
Well, I mean, like the milking genetics, that's like a whole nother untapped thing to figure out. And again, those guys that are milking deer, they're going to make some massive improvements over the next few years. As they figure, they're honing in on the genetics that are good for which hinds are good, and which obviously need a good temperament, and really start to narrow down, and then get down to which hinds are producing better daily, and finding out all those things. That the rate of progression is just mind blowing.
And of course the byproducts of that, whether it's what makes a good cheese, what components, what proteins and fats out of the milk makes good cheese, and then what the guys from Palmer, what makes good beauty products. It's super fascinating. And I sort of, when Billy was a few months old and having issues with putting on weight and reflux and stuff, I was looking at what is it, a milk to consume, and I was thinking, man, why don't we have a baby formula made out of deer's milk? I think that'd be the go. So
Yeah,
they're a bit tight-lipped on their product, unfortunately.
yeah,
Unfortunately, with all due respect, they had a lot of intellectual property, but yeah,
yes.
if anyone out there, what's a market avenue, that might be one too.
Well, if you want to come down, I'll run some into the crush for you. You might not have any teeth left when you.
Yeah, I did watch that country calendar. What were they milking them through the wall, basically?
Yeah, yeah, that was the guys up here at Lincoln Hills, and I've been lucky enough to be out there and see it done and taste some milk straight out of the vat, and if you ever get the chance to try it, it is just the most amazing thing you'll ever taste. It's it was absolutely amazing. So.
Yeah, mate. You brought up the fact that the deer industry, sort of early 70s, those first licenses came about, and it turned this seek and destroy market into a potential gold mine. And even Pete telling me about the first deer he bought, and then it got whatever that is, that disease that they get from sheep, and he found the two of them dead in the paddock. He was absolutely heartbroken. But
Yes.
you speak about this cavalier mentality, and you and I have romanticised those Deer Wars videos, guys jumping out of helicopters with net guns and stuff.
Yeah.
Mate, is that part of what resonates with you? Just the madness?
Well, it is because, I'm not. If I was born back in that time, I'd love to have a go, but but I think such a terrible shot for a start, so I wouldn't make it, and I'm pretty slow at gutting anything, and I've had to wrestle we had a fawn get out here one time. We were tagging, somehow got over the fence, and I chased it all around the village up here, and ended up in a mob of heifers like 2 farms away, and it was an absolute debacle. And I was like, well, as I was chasing it around the paddocks, I was like, well, these guys used to jump out of helicopters, and I'm just on a 4-wheeler, and it's just a little fawn, so this should be easy. So bulldogged it off the 4-wheeler and got an absolute kicking, and in the end I gave up on and let him go again, and went home and got the syringe pole and some drugs, and come back and did it that way instead. So but yeah, so I think, and it's one thing I try to tell a lot of people, is it's the greatest conservation story ever told in my book, and to take what was, New Zealand was at the point of ecological disaster, quite literally, to turn that into an absolute win for the environment by hunting them so ruthlessly with helicopters, to the point where they had to start farming them, is just the greatest. I think that's the greatest story ever told. And when you read the stories and the books and see the videos, it's just, how can you not get intoxicated by that? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you hear the horror stories about Robinsons, but having had a short half an hour flight on one of those things, I could see why they're pretty addictive. I'd love to do a few more flights and learn how to properly operate one of those things. And then
Same here. It's definitely a bucket list thing.
But then you watch those guys in Northern Territory, Australia, and you think, maybe hang on, maybe I don't want to fly one of those things, or hear the horror stories of flying over cliff faces in Fiordland and being sucked flat into it. Yeah, you kind of think, well, maybe not.
But then you see how those guys, especially over in Aussie, how they torture those little R22s, and you think, well, surely flying in a straight line you should be pretty safe. But so.
No, it's pretty crazy, but yeah, definitely adds to the romance of what is such a cool industry by my biased perspective. Mate, you've got some of the fanfare on there, the NZ Farming jumper. Of course, people can buy their own. Is that right? The store's in stock at the moment.
Yeah, we've got a wee bit of a store going. It was, just handy. I love this bloody thing because it's, it's a bit quite, even though we're only just out of summer, it's just pretty cool night. Yeah. So it's, the old merino possum is bloody good. So, yeah, it's pretty cool how it sort of come about. We never really set out to have a merchandise store or anything, but you just sort of always have these people asking you for it, and can could you get me one, and this, that, and the other. So and then we're like, oh well, we'll do a couple of runs and see how it goes, and surely we'll sell 10 jerseys and the fad will run out. But it just seems to truck on quite nicely, and people are getting into it, so it's cool.
Absolutely. So tell us, mate, how did NZ Farming on Facebook start out? What was the pain or the excitement that thought, let's give this thing a go?
Well, so the genesis of it really was Tyler, who started it day one. He was a shepherd in the back blocks of Wanganui, somewhere on a farm, pretty isolated, and he was sitting in his wee accommodation one night feeling like, I could really do to go to the pub, and he was, having a bit of a tough time. It was his first shepherding job, and sort of struggling a wee bit to sort of find his feet with it, and sort of felt he needed someone to talk to almost. So he was mucking around on Facebook, probably chatting up girls, knowing him, and and then he saw this thing start page, and he thought, oh well, what if? So he sort of kicked it in the guts with the idea of just bouncing a few ideas around and get a few people to have a bit of a yarn with, sort of thing, online. And obviously there's plenty of other shepherds and people, isolated places that sort of got into it, and that's sort of the way it went. So that was, I guess, the key driver to start the Facebook page was, just providing a bit of a platform for both, Tyler himself, and then other people just jumped on board and got into it. So away she went.
Yeah, and
I think that was about 6 years ago now, after 6 or 7 years ago now. So
yeah, it does sound about right. I think it was when I first moved to Christchurch, it entered my sphere.
Yep.
Back when Facebook used to feed you good stuff.
Yeah, it was a different place, different times.
Yeah. And so how did you get involved?
Well, funnily enough, like not long after that started, it started growing pretty. Back in those days, if you had 10,000 followers, you were big time. And it pretty quickly got to that point. And I think it was around about there somewhere that my day job, we were looking for someone to help load the planes that summer. And so I was like, we could chuck an ad on that bloody NZ Farming thing and see if we could turn up someone. So I chucked in a message to this NZ Farming thing, and then about 5 seconds later, Tyler messaged me back and was like, I'll be keen on that job. And so I was like, right, cool. Well, so I sorted him out, got him up for an interview, and he got the job. And so we started yarning, because obviously we'd had a few interactions on Facebook over the page already, so we kind of were aware of who we were and that sort of thing. And then he came up, worked with us over that summer, and away she went. We got on like a house on fire. And back then, when social media was a bit more of the Wild West, he was sort of this young, I think he wasn't even 20, I think, at that stage. So the young fella was getting himself in sort of quite a few predicaments and that sort of thing. And I sort of had this knack of helping him put out a few fires, and sort of got into it that way, really, and away we went. And next thing, I was an admin as well, and away we went.
Yeah. So how many admins are there now?
Well, we've got quite a few, because we've got quite a few wee sub pages, as well as Instagram, and a few offshoot pages. So we've got a wee trading page, jobs page, fencing page, contracting page. Might
be where I have to go after my little fencing excursion last week.
So sort of amongst all those people, I think over all those wee platforms, we've sort of probably got about a dozen of us at least all up, and we sort of because we're all busy working people, some of us get busy with carving or velveting and that sort of thing, and so we can't sort of do too much. So we sort of we can sort of come and go a bit. So it's pretty cool, the people that have sort of come into it. Just sort of, it's been a pretty organic sort of process. We've tripped over some pretty cool people that have come in and helped us out. And so it's now this pretty big network of mates doing, I think some pretty cool stuff from time to time.
Yeah, I've managed to find some of my favourite Instagram follows through NZ Farming. Obviously, Kane came along through that, and Lisa Tarmany, but turns out I'd been following Kane all along through you guys, and the fellas down there at Ryebush with their sheep operation, especially around lambing time, their lambing shed's something to behold. Like the Genesis there, plenty of people out the back blocks of nowhere just working in some of the most incredible scenery and sharing it with the world and showing us and the rest of the world where New Zealand's food really comes from, because sheep and beef industry and venison industry are pretty lucky in some of the places they get to hang out in, would you not say?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, it's amazing, like with camera phone technology and how easy it is to carry a decent professional quality camera in your pocket and catch these moments. And I think most people who work on the land, can realise that. But sometimes it is pretty hard when you're grafting away. You do forget just how bloody fantastic it is when you look up and take a look around. So I think that's pretty cool that there's so many people, especially on Instagram, like, I don't know how many stories we get a day, but we don't get to post them all. But just amazing, the variety of what people are up to and what their challenges are, and their wins and losers, and all that sort of stuff. It's quite remarkable. And it's that whole, gets talked about a lot, that whole story about how we're trying to connect with the consumer on the other side of the world or even in town, and tell them the story about where their food is coming from and how it's grown. And I think we've got a pretty big audience overseas and in cities, and people that just love it. And so it's pretty cool to kind of be the conduit and give all these people out there a mouthpiece if they want it, and show off where they're working. And because otherwise people would never have seen these things and seen these places. So it's pretty cool.
And I think what I was sort of thinking about, there's likes of Alperium out there, giving people a voice, and it's, I guess that what the page is also providing is an example of people doing stuff. And so, like, even to begin with, like Tyler sort of thinking, well, I'm alone, so maybe somebody else is a bit of a lone out here, and we can have a yarn. And then seeing somebody doing something good for other people in the industry in one part of the country means that all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of people doing some good stuff all around the country, and then those people come together, and then all their efforts gain force and gain momentum, and the market's reached. So I think it's just this massive beast, and like you say, all these offshoot pages now, it's just pretty remarkable from one guy sharing, and it's something I've written about in my blog. Often when you do share your heartache, you resonate with a bunch of people, and then you create this amazing community of people coming from the same place who share a passion, and it's pretty bloody awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as much as social media can be, it can have obviously its negative side, and there's always going to be those knockers and the odd meathead turning up saying something stupid or running you down or whatever. It's on balance, it's amazing the support. If someone's genuinely struggling, it's amazing how quick people rally behind them and will get in touch with them in person. And you think about the people that I've bumped into over the years. I've become quite good friends with them, and then I help them through some tough times, and they've helped me through a few as well. So it's these people you would never have otherwise met, and they don't need to be like a big name Star that you read about in the Farmers Weekly or something. It's there's just like this guy Kano, who's this bloody cow whopper and Vapitaranaki's something who can have a profound effect on you, and it's just it's pretty cool. And so I mean that's the whole when you think about why the hell you do it, and you wonder sometimes it takes up considerable amount of time, and you just have to have a few interactions like that, or see someone that's helped someone else out, and that's just so bloody cool. But,
I was talking with the guy I'm doing coaching with today, and he was kind of trying to get at why do I do podcasting, and it was he sort of saw that in essence you're sort of giving out a whole bunch of stuff for free and whatever, but then actually because you're giving out stuff comes back, and then like you start to see these ripples and people exchanging that, it just becomes its own little beast, and it just just starts to fulfill you as well, which is really really pretty incredible. On the flip side as well, you put kind of showcasing some of those larrikins that people only really would have known about down at the pub, and their tall stories. Now some of those tall stories have some truth to them, because people are recording the amazing feats and sometimes questionable feats that they're up to.
Well, if it's not on the gram, that it really happens. And I mean, obviously, there's a lot of I mean, that's one thing I really do get a kick out of. It causes a bit of conflict. Those guys, people who might be pushing the envelope a bit, or they like to let loose a bit, which I think that's just that whole, again, it's that old Kiwi persona that it's kind of called cut loose, and sometimes that happens on a farm, and it might be on a four-wheeler in work time, but it's that's just a whole part of it, and some people don't like it, but I think it's just part of what makes farming bloody fantastic, is to not only be the place you work, but also the place you play as well. Because if you're not having fun and not having a laugh at the same time, then what's the point? So,
Fridays are always good for two reasons. There's feeding out, and then there's fucking it up. But again, bit of polarity on the page, eh?
Well, I mean, we don't deliberately do that to be antagonistic, but it's a genuine. There's a lot of teetotalers and things out there that think that sort of stuff shouldn't be on the internet, but that's just one of those things of telling our story. And that's doing skids on four-wheelers isn't your cup of tea. Believe it or not, there's other people that do quite enjoy that. So each to their own, and wear a helmet, kids.
Yeah, that's right. It's some of that sort of devils and minerals, as you said, your day job. What is it about guys that are in cropping that they're just a little bit nuts?
I don't know. It's
sort of get a tractor for 12 hours a day probably does it to you.
I don't know. No, it's I don't know. It's a good question.
It's a very democratic answer, I think.
Yes.
Diplomatic answer, that's the word.
Yeah.
And as you said, you need someone to load planes. Can you jump in one, or that's another dream of yours?
I think, I mean, like I've said, I would, when I was at school, I just was dining out on those Chopper Boy, Rex Forrester books, and the Chopper Boy, and the legendary Alan Bond that used to live around here. He was always flying over all the time, and I was absolutely adamant I was going to go and be a chopper pilot, but then absolutely sucked at physics at school. Some reason I let that stop me giving it a crack. It's one of life's regrets. But I would love to go flying, but you got to. That's one of the big things about the ag industry. You see an ag pilot. You see, like, especially chopper pilots, they look like they've got the dream life. And the same with top racing pilots. It looks pretty cool and pretty romantic, but it's what the sacrifices you got to make to go flying and actually get a seat doing an ag flying job is nothing short of remarkable in terms of sacrifice, financially and time and that sort of thing. So it's more than I can handle at the moment to go flying. But maybe one day if I get sick of deer farming, I might have a midlife crisis.
Well, for the near future, there might be a few 500 or so Air New Zealand pilots that might like to take up egg flying as well.
Well, I mean, I hear there's a real shortage of helicopter pilots with their ag rating.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be an opportunity for any aspiring pilot who's sick of flying a 747 to go and get your fixed wing, all your ratings up to date and get an ag rating, and away you go. But
yeah, get fertiliser on some of the amazing country, mate.
yeah.
Obviously, it's still pretty new news, and especially when it comes to New Zealand. But there must be a few worried people in the industry about what it means for our exports and getting our produce out there. On top of what's been a pretty dry summer from New Zealand standards.
Yeah.
What's sort of coming into the page?
That's back, I don't know, probably a month or 6 weeks ago when that drought was really starting to bite, and people were making those good decisions and lightening up their stock numbers and trying to get kill space, particularly for cattle. I think it came as a bit of a bolt out of the blue when the email came around from Silverfern Farms to say, no, shutting up shop for a few days until we sort out this shipping debacle. And I talked to quite a few people that had entire unit loads of prime cattle ready to go, and they were desperate for them to go because they needed the feed, and they got cut from a whole unit load down to 9 or 8 or something. And yeah, it's pretty sobering, because we're at the time, because you can plant yourself in that position pretty quick. But we were really lucky with what we were selling at the time to lighten up. Deer were pretty uninterrupted because the venison's still going to Europe at the moment, so that was largely uninterrupted. So we were really lucky about it. We took a strategy of instead of just quitting everything early, we sort of staggered things. Every couple of weeks we'd send another handful away, just because it's a hard thing from a business perspective to try and plan for when it's going to rain. So we took that strategic approach and just sort of did it little by little. Luckily we were able to get what we wanted killed when we wanted it killed. So we were pretty lucky.
Yeah, and so obviously that's one, now two more things that's on the mind of a farmer. What do you think from the community perspective you guys sort of provide, and as a channel, what are you guys sort of focusing on promoting and during sort of harder times?
Yeah, I think it's just really we're just there for whatever. We never really set out with a big plan. If something happens, some big event, whether it's an earthquake or a flood or whatever, we never set out with right, we're going to do this. But it's pretty well follow a lead, like just whatever the demand is. That's generally how we react. So we've got to think pretty quickly on our feet sometimes, and as to what the best course of action is, and what how we can help people out, and what's needed. So we've been thinking a lot, because we're in a drought ourselves. Even though we've got green grass out there now, the drought hasn't been far from our mind all year, and later part of last year. So people affected by drought, because I'm one of them. That's front of the mind. But then obviously we had some floods down south, and now this whole coronavirus, it's like a whole other unprecedented sort of disruption to life. So we'll just be as ready and prepared as we can for ourselves, and to help out as much as we can to whoever needs it. So well, I was just talking last night with Rural Support Trust, who, they were going to have a whole heap of drought shout events, which is a real cool thing to do whenever there's a big drought on, is to get people off the farm and try and blow off some steam. But obviously now we've hit this weird thing where we can't actually get off farm and help people out. So it's going to be a bit of a thing. So we'll probably help out, see what we can do around trying to do something online to sort of let people vent a bit, and so we'll see where that goes. But she's interesting times.
Absolutely, and you bring up the drought. When we were in northern New South Wales, they were doing it pretty tough with drought, and we sponsored I think we ended up getting about 50 bales from our rugby match. But as you said, something like this virus thing, it might not be that anyone's allowed to play rugby or soccer or whatever they want to do. Things might get quite strange for a little while, really.
Definitely. Every day is a school day, that's for sure. And don't know what the answer is just yet, but we'll stick our heads down and roll our sleeves up and see how we can get through it. So, but I think the big thing, the communities, when the going gets tough, especially in the rural communities, that's when they really get going. That whole community spirit is pretty unshakable. So no one's really alone. We're all in it together, and we'll help each other out as best we can. So we'll all move forward together.
Mate, you brought up two topics there: the droughts last year down south and even through Central Otago, and then of course the Kaikoura earthquake. What's some of the things you guys did behind the scenes, especially that Kaikoura earthquake, that some people might not realise? Having a central group, what can be facilitated? That Kaikoura stuff was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, that's a prime example. Like, we never even, that night the earthquake happened, we were making silage here till about 1 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. So, and it was raining the next morning, so I had a slight sleep in. We never felt any earthquake here, and I definitely didn't. I was sleeping pretty soundly, and then we woke up to what was in front of us was, for a start, I was like, well, there's not going to be a hell of a lot I can do. But then the way it worked out was Tyler, he was building in Blenheim and got put off work for the day because obviously Blenheim was pretty buggered up. So him and a few mates just, had all his tools on his ute. So they're like, well, we'll go for a drive, and if someone needs a hand, we'll help them patch up their house and put a bit of iron on the roof or whatever, and just get people weather tight, and just we'll go from there. And I think the way that whole effort sort of kicked off was, he sort of jokingly said, well, if anyone wants to chip in for some diesel, let us know. And away she went like fire. And then sort of concurrently with that, we started getting people through the inbox. We're like, I've got my relative, up such a valley, we can't get hold of them because the phones are not there. And so we sort of had this bush telegraph thing going that we're having people left, right and centre wanting to know if we'd heard from so-and-so up there or down there. Or so I think for the first week, we were sort of running almost 24 hours a day, sort of keeping a bit of a track of people who'd been asked about and people who had made themselves known. We run posts sort of like, do you know, has anyone talked to so-and-so? And it was it was Mickey Mouse, and it was just Heath Robinson as you can get, but we managed to piece it all together, and I don't think there was one person on that spreadsheet that we didn't track down eventually in the end. So we sort of got through that. And then all of a sudden there was all this demand coming for people needing help, stock water, and fence repairs, and there were deer out, and it was just an absolute clusterfuck. So yeah, it was a challenging time, and just about sent us mad, because obviously, as well as that, you know, I had a full-time job off farm, and then I was just starting into Belveding as well, and it was a pretty busiest time of the year for me work-wise. And then yeah, I sort of ended up helping out, facilitate a lot of stuff, and yeah, it was a busy few months, and yeah, just about sent us mad, and took us a fair few months to get over it once it was all sort of said and done. Yeah, she was some hard times, but the main thing was we made a difference, I think, and I can be pretty, for myself personally, it's one of the most, you know, it's not a lot of people know that I was actually busy doing it behind the scenes, and other people were just like, oh, I'm usually on the phone a lot anyway, but phones in the ear, and emailing people flat stick, and yeah, I think one of the tough things was I had my in-laws out here from Scotland, and it was one night I was just put the venison on the barbecue, and the phone rang, and there's a guy with a bulldozer up on Bluff Station or somewhere, and his tracks got spat off, and his home base was actually Kaikoura, so obviously that was a big round trip for him, and so that by dark that night we had him a satellite phone delivered to him by plane, and he was able to talk to his son who was in Kaikoura to jack up the parts he needed and get him going again. So there's a million. We should have really had someone recording all that stuff, because there's so much stuff I've just forgotten, because it was just an absolute blur, and people I talked to on the phone and who I can't remember, but there's all these people that were just doing so many things. Yeah, it was so cool, so cool.
Yeah, man, it'd be something that you could write a book on already, and
Yeah.
you know, and you're gonna need some time to do that.
Well, maybe if we end up in quarantine or something for a couple of weeks, I'll sit down, start writing a memoir or something. But yeah, we're certainly pretty proud of what we were able to do, and we couldn't do everything, but we gave it a bloody good crack and gave it everything we had. So yeah, hand on heart, so we did the best we could.
It was bloody awesome. I remember chatting to you, and you're telling me about all the deer farms and deer running out and game parks and all sorts that was going on up there, and you saw those images of that bunch of cattle standing on a island within the middle of a paddock. It was pretty strange stuff.
Yeah,
pretty amazing what the land can do.
Yeah, it's amazing. Seeing, especially those farms that were, the most worst affected, and you see them now, how they've sort of bounced back as best they can, and hell of a ride for those guys, and some pretty dark times as well. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happened that we won't be forgetting, especially those dark times. But yeah, it's amazing to be out the other end of it, and yeah, now it's almost a distant memory. So
yeah, mate. On the positive side, what do you sort of see happening? I mean, it's probably pretty hard to predict because it's all been so random so far.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd love to say we sat down and planned it all out meticulously, and with these experts at picking social media algorithms and this, that, and the other, and well, I mean, a lot of it isn't by luck. We've done some things, and we've learned a lot of stuff along the way, what to do and what not to do, and how not to do it, and that's always changing along the way. But yeah, it's pretty cool to have got to where we're at. For some people who knew nothing about social media or dare I say journalism, or because I guess we're kind of in a loose kind of way, we kind of are a media platform in a way. So it's something I never thought I'd end up doing at all, but my English teacher probably can't believe it either. But, yeah, so I mean, we've got some big, we've always got big ideas, and the whole team on the page, we're all some pretty good thinkers there, and it's an amazing group, and we do have some pretty big ideas about where we want to go next and things I think we can do. Things like this is the first podcast I've ever done, but we'd love to do a podcast and get these legendary Kiwis that are out there, get their stories told, and there's some ripper yarns and some ripper people.
And especially with probably one of New Zealand's highest ranking Instagram pages, I just brought it up, 38,000.1. So there's already a pretty well established audience. And I know moving to the Hawke's Bay, I've introduced a couple of farmers to podcasts, even if it's catching up on Rural Report. What's the one that Hamish Mackay does?
Oh, Rural Exchange.
Rural Exchange. Even if it's catching up on that whenever you want. People that spend a lot of time driving around in trucks. It's all those contractors.
yeah. It's amazing, like the guys out there in tractors and combines. I talk to guys all the time. Even like clients and stuff, they'll be out in the combine. I'll be, you listen to this podcast about such and such the other day, and he'll be like, right, I'm going to harvest some wheat this afternoon, so I'll crack that, get that going. And it's amazing the information that can be there while you're doing some pretty mundane tasks. So
no, bloody awesome.
I guess that sort of feeds into the whole success of what we've done, and people who are along the journey with us is, it's all pretty open source, and it's like the whole podcast thing in a nutshell, isn't it? That's all this information and experience that people are prepared to give up and teach other people, and learn from others at the same time. It's pretty cool.
No, it's absolutely awesome, and I look forward to the NZ Farming podcast. So you got Facebook, you've got Instagram. Is there anywhere else to find them? Obviously the store, where's that?
So the store is just nzfarmingstore.com, I think. Yeah. And there's a link to from our Insta. You can track us down pretty quick. So and we've got a few presence on other platforms as well. I just started a TikTok account the other day. I think we've still got a Snapchat account somewhere and a YouTube account, which YouTube's probably something we want to get into a bit more as well, if we can only get the time to put into going and making some content. So watch this space.
I say New Zealand farming's not done yet. TikTok, man, I haven't even tried that one yet. So.
Well, someone actually messaged me and said, I didn't know you guys were on it. And I was like, we're not. And there's these couple of wee wounders that are ripped off our logo and have, kind of taken the liberty of starting their own account under our name sort of thing. So it's sort of get in there and give them a bit of a hurry up. So.
Have a chat. I do lie, actually. I started a Musical.ly account, which was pre-TikTok, so I've kind of been there.
Oh.
No, very good. Mate, what would you like to leave us with? I think from a wide-ranging rural perspective, what's something that you don't think, does the rural person wrong, that always shows up as something that's consistent about the industry and I think the backbone of this country?
Well, I think, it's just for people who are wondering what goes on out here, we're right here and we're ready to talk, ready to have a yarn to you. And, it's, open arms, and if your ears and eyes are open to learning genuinely what's going on, we're really keen to talk and connect with you. And because there's nothing that comes down, for me, it's like when you sit down and you've got some of your own venison in the freezer and you have friends or family or friends of friends who are dropped in from overseas, and you can sit down and enjoy a meal of venison with them. It's a pretty special thing to be able to tell them the whole story of how that animal came to be, and you see the enjoyment on people's faces, when they enjoy something that you've produced, all the way from putting the fertilizer on the paddock, all the way through to buying the stag, to that sort of thing. That's a pretty special thing to be able to get to experience with that person who's enjoying it. So, and I guess what to say about the present situation is, I guess we can, from lessons learned, it's to expect the unexpected, and those hard times are actually, they're what make us in the end at the other side, because we learn so much and we grow as people and we grow with other people, and it's a pretty special experience. The ride that you can go with these people you don't even know, people you don't know end up being your firm friends, and that's one hell of an adventure. So it's pretty cool.
Wicked, man. I love what you're saying about the provenance of what's on the table in the story, and someone that's worked in a number of rural communities now, it's always the farmer that comes in that makes me run late, because we just end up chatting about where they've worked and what stock class they're running and what's happening. And I absolutely love it, and I'm very privileged to interact with the community, and I love being part of Next Generation Deer Farmers page and following you guys along. And it's awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, mate. And I guess we'll thank Kane for giving you another nudge as well, because we did talk earlier in the year, and that sort of pushed it forward a bit more. It's awesome.
Man, that's just how these inertia balls get going. And good on Kano for talking of us so highly. And it's pretty cool to, when you flick, you go back to think of all your podcasts that I've listened to, the caliber of people you've had on, and obviously the stuff you've imparted in those conversations too is pretty cool. So it's a huge honour to have been invited on. So thanks for having us.
Love it, mate. Thanks so much. Cheers.
No worries.